Asking about the process of writing the script and where you maybe came up with the idea for the film and what that process was like of really putting the story together for the screenplay over.
I spoke to Mickey Liddell and Pete Shalomon after we made Anthropoid, and they said that they wanted to make a horror film, and did I have any ideas? And I started to speak about an idea that I had about a remote village that had been plagued by a wolf, and that there was a death and a child was missing, and that they were harboring this kind of dark secret. And they said, well, that sounds quite interesting. What have you got? And I said, well, that's it. And they said, okay, well, do you think you could write something down and sort of flesh it out? So I said, yeah, okay. So I think it took a couple of months and we got to about 60 pages, and they got really excited about what we had. And then said, okay, well, look, we'd love to get going on this quite soon. Do you think we could shoot it this winter? And I said, we're probably running out of winter by the time we get shooting. And they said, well, what if we do it in 2 blocks? We shoot it in this winter and we shoot it next winter, and then we can edit over the summer and see what we've got. And I thought that was a really interesting idea. So we set about filming at the beginning of 2019, and then we did another block in the beginning of 2020.
And also, I wanted to ask about the process of going on to direct the film as well, and how working on creating the story really influenced your directing on the set as
well. Well, during my research, I've been a big love. I have a big love for, horror films, especially films from the 80s, where I sort of grew up watching that genre a lot. But I was looking more at the original Wolfman and the way that the writer had written The Curse of the Wolf as a metaphor for being Jewish in the late 30s in Europe. And I thought that it was, it was so interesting that the wolf was a sort of a metaphor for being persecuted and chased and hunted, which is what the wolf curse is sort of about. And I started to think about what plagues us in modern society, and what I could speak to that. And I was very interested in doing a film about addiction. And I absolutely didn't know what that was in terms of story. But I started to think in terms of the possibility of the wolf being a metaphor for addiction, and how addiction kind of plagues us, whether it's drugs or whether it's our phones or whatever, and it's a very destructive behavior, and it can destroy families and friendships and communities even. It's so I started to think of the wolf as a metaphor for addiction, and how addiction can make you a prisoner to it. And I think once I started to think in terms of you being a prisoner to your addiction, that started to inform our approach for the design of the wolf, because you don't change into a wolf, you become a prisoner to the wolf. And I thought that's when it started to feel like something fresh was happening. So at that point, I think I was starting to speak to concept artists about this idea, and a wolf that would look nothing like anything we'd ever seen before.
And also, speaking of the look of the wolf in the film, I also wanted to ask about that process of really creating the special effects and the overall design for the wolf in particular, and how you approach really creating the visuals for the film overall as
well. The wolf design was originally started by Mark Coulier, who I'd worked on Anthropoid with, and I'd sort of spoken to him about something that was quite live and quite incredibly fast and ferocious, but not necessarily anything that looked like a werewolf as we know it. and Mark actually went on to do Pinocchio and wasn't available to do this. So Jean-Christophe Spadaccini in Paris took over, and he took some of the designs that Mark had done, and he started to augment them a little bit more. And he actually built 3 life-size wolves that we had on set, and they were the ones that we used for the filming. And then during our first editing period, I looked at the wolf again, and I wanted to tweak it a little bit more. And I got another concept artist to come in, and the brief that I gave him, I said, I want to cross a wolf with a shark, and I think that's what it should look like. And I think so. He was like, so no hair, and I was like, no hair. So it basically started to look exactly like that. And then I think once we got the design that I was happy with, then CGEV in Paris applied that design to all the sequences involving the wolf. So the wolf is pretty much fully CG, apart from about 3 or 4 shots, which it's practical in some of those shots.
I also wanted to ask about casting the film as well, and what that process was like of finding which actors you wanted to work with in the film as well.
Yeah, I worked with obviously Boyd and Kelly and Alistair on this film, and Boyd had actually approached me after reading the script and said that he really loved the script, and would I chat with him? And I chatted with him, and he said, obviously, the elephant in the room is, can I speak English with an English accent? And I sort of said, yeah, maybe. And he said, well, look, let me tape my voice and you tell me how much work I need to do. And he sent me a tape of him speaking English with an accent, and I thought it was pretty close, actually, I have to say. And he said, just know that I'm going to be working every day on it up until the shoot. So I think at that point, Boyd was on board, and he did a really good job with that accent. I know he didn't break accent, like I know we'd had break for lunch, but he stayed in that accent. It was just easier for him to stay in that with that accent rather than do anything else. But yeah, I mean, it was after we got Boyd, then Alistair Petrie and Kelly Riley were 2 actors that I love their work immensely, and so we went to them, and they were our first choices, and luckily they said yes to the script. So.
And once they signed on to star in the film, what was the process like of really collaborating with them? Like you mentioned, working with Boyd on the accent, and just in general, that experience of really collaborating with them to build the characters for the film as well.
Well, I mean, it was a very collaborative process, because they're very bright, and they want to have a complete understanding of character and the motivations and the conflicts. They want to understand all of that, and they come with really good suggestions, and that, sometimes they're like, is this conflict enough, or is it too much? Should I have more empathy here? And so you really are, I think the written word on the page is one thing, but the delivery or the actual meaning behind that written word is often where you and the actors do your work on set, because you're starting to see it in a 3D form rather than it just being on the page. And I think that's a very interesting process for myself as a director, to work with actors on really bringing what was on the page to fruition, into a fully blooded kind of embodied person that we can relate to, who has flaws and who is complex and who wants things. So yeah, I mean, it's that's one of the pleasures of the job, really.
And also, besides working with them on the emotional arcs, I also wanted to ask about getting to collaborate with them on the physicalities for the roles as well, and really working with them to focus on the stunt work as well overall.
Sorry, say again. Say again. You want to focus on
The
their.
physicality and the stunt work for the film as well.
Um, well, I mean, you know, costuming is a big part, and I think obviously you creating an atmosphere that is believable, so they walk on set and they feel like the person they're playing will help them give you some realism that you need. So so yeah, I think it's just about supporting them and giving them a place where they can do their work. Stunt work. I mean, we had a great stunt team on this. I mean, all the stunts were practical, and the massacre of the village, for instance, was sort of a 15-day rehearsal, and obviously we shot it in sort of one take. Um, so yeah, a lot of preparation really.
And also, I wanted to ask about deciding where you wanted to shoot the film as well, and with the movies being set in like this remote village, and what that process was like of finding where you wanted to shoot the movie as well.
I knew all along where I wanted to shoot the movie because it's not far from where I live. So all the time I was writing the script, I had sort of earmarked locations that I thought would be appropriate for the scenes that I was writing. So it was a very easy process to actually say, I want to shoot it here, or I want to shoot it there, or find somewhere that looks like that. So yeah, I pretty much had all that in mind as I would, you know, while I was writing the script, because I've lived in that area for a very long time.
And also, I wanted to ask about getting to produce the film as well, and what that process was like of really balancing the directing with producing on set as well.
Um, well, I think producing, you know, producing is sort of that sort of a very strange word in some respect, but it's, for instance, if my producer comes to me and he speaks to me as I am a producer, he will say, I just want to make you aware that we have to wrap in 10 minutes and you still haven't, are you still not happy with this shot creatively? Because if we go over 10 minutes, it means we lose an hour tomorrow. And I know tomorrow you've got a big scene that's very important, or you said it was very important, that you feel that you want this amount of coverage. So at that point, I'm a producer thinking, do I creatively cut now and don't continue with what I'm doing now and get the extra time tomorrow? So I think that's when you start thinking as a producer and you say, okay, well, it makes sense for me not to spend any more time on this and basically accept this for what it is, and then use that time tomorrow on a scene that I know is going to be very stressful and I might need the extra time tomorrow. So yeah. Did I mention that filmmaking is about compromise?
And also, I wanted to ask about the movie now playing during Sundance, and what that experience has been like as well, of having the virtual screenings as well during the festival.
You know, listen, I mean, that's the times we're living in. I mean, it's all right to sort of cry about the fact that we're not in Sundance and that, you know, we're not standing out in the cold screaming for tickets or waiting for tickets. And then there's that buzz in that cinema. But, you know, there is a plus side to it as well. And obviously the pandemic is, you know, is rife at the moment. And so obviously we want to protect people and to make sure that, you know, people are safe. But at the same time, you know, less movies are being made because of the pandemic, and so there's yet there is more want for content. So, you know, there are pluses to the minuses, as in life. So I guess you just duck and dive. You just duck and dive.
Okay, I think that was me later, but thank you again for taking the time out today. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay.